Well, this is the first time I've ever done a podcast and video mobile in a van. I'm here with Dan Joy. He's Executive Vice President of the Davey Tree Export Company. And Dan, what are we going to see?
Today we're going to go do a tour of our new seed campus that we're developing here in Kent, Ohio, right across the street from our corporate headquarters.
And this is your baby.
This is my baby, yes.
Tell me how long you've been working on it.
I've been working on the seed campus since probably 2018 when we started on the master plan.
So this is the Arboretum.
Yes, it's kind of our front door. As we enter into the project, you will drive right through the center of the Arboretum. The Arboretum consists of approximately 30 acres of the site. And we are looking to have the Arboretum accredited through a network of worldwide arboretums called ArbNet. They have 4 different classifications, and we're targeting to get to the top tier, which requires us to get to over 500 different species of plants, have an educational component to it, a research component to it, and a dedicated maintenance staff to maintain it. And all of those criteria will be easily met by us. We've got a plant palette that exceeds the 500 species, and all told, when we're all done with it, we'll have planted over 36,000 new plants into the Arboretum, in addition to the existing trees that we preserved from the golf course.
Tell me about that giant sugar maple. I don't think I've ever seen one that big.
That giant sugar maple was here when we bought the property. I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but I would guess it's in the vicinity of 50 to 60 years old. It's one of the largest ones I've ever seen. We very specifically have not allowed it to be pruned or elevated up. We're just trying to let it get to its natural state. And then we did just have a vote from our employees across the country trying to identify a tree that we would make as an anniversary tree for our 45 years of employee ownership, and that sugar maple won the contest.
Tell me a little bit about all the planning that's gone into this, how big this area is, because this is huge.
Yeah, we bought the golf course in 2016, and it was 178 acres. And then a year or so later, we bought an additional parcel just to the south of it that was an old elementary school with the city of Kent that gave us another 9 acres. So all told, we're about 186 acres for the complex. But by the time we got done with setbacks and wetlands and all the things that we had to avoid, we landed at about 80 acres of land that we could develop.
So we're coming up on a huge building here. What are we going to see?
Well, this is our training center. It has a lot of things going on in it, and we'll get up closer to it and kind of talk through it. It's anchored on one end, on the west end here, by a barn that originally sat up towards the front of the property. We dismantled it shortly after we bought the property and stored the timbers for about 6 years, and then put it back up, re-raised it here about 4 months ago, and it'll serve as an anchor to the building for a big event space. We can hold about 220 people in there at round tables. We envision it being used for big corporate meetings, events, annual shareholders meeting, graduation ceremonies from training events, that sort of thing. In the front of that barn, and the other thing about the barn, on the interior, all the original timbers are exposed, and we did have those timbers dated by Ohio State University, and they determined that they were harvested in the vicinity of 1890. Wow. All hand-sawn white oak timbers, which aligns very well with the start of Davey Tree in 1880. So it just seemed like a no-brainer to save it and repurpose it. In the front of the barn is a space that contains a catering kitchen to help support events that we would be having in there, restrooms, and kind of a pre-event gathering space before you would enter into the barn.
Is it, I know it is, exciting for you to see it come this far.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thrilled every day. We've got over 100 workers on site on a daily basis, so change happens fast here. If you're away from the site for a couple of days, you come back and there's a lot that's happened just in a very short period of time.
What has driven you crazy about this project? Because I can't imagine putting something this big together. There's got to be something that drives you crazy at some point.
Well, what drives me crazy is even though we're moving at record pace, it still isn't fast enough for Dan. Okay, I would like to see it done yesterday because I'm just so excited to get it in use. So that's probably my biggest frustration. It takes time, and everything's got to go in its sequence, and you can't get ahead of yourself.
These buildings are huge.
Yes, the total building is about 70,000 square foot. Through the center of the building, the second floor will be all office space for our researchers, educators, and trainers. And the first floor, the center part of the building, is got some classrooms out the back, video training studio, photo studio, and archives collection space, all climate controlled. And then the other far end of the building is an indoor climbing training center to be utilized for our arborists to get acquainted with their ropes and saddles and knots and experiencing starting to get off the ground. And then they could graduate out to the real trees after they receive some initial training inside.
Why was it so important to have this for Davey Tree?
Well, we are, a worldwide leader in the tree care industry, and our growth over the last, couple of decades has just been phenomenal. Our employee count has doubled probably in the last 10 years, and we just needed to enhance our ability to train our employees.
And what happens to you when this is all done?
I retire.
Really?
Really, seriously.
You're sure?
I'm positive. Yes.
You're not going to let them call you and say, hey, there's something with this building, the corner isn't right.
No, it'll be right when I turn it over. So.
What else is on site?
Well, we're going to start heading. We've got this great grove of white oaks that were here from the golf course that we actually planned around to be able to preserve them. So they'll serve as a great second stage of training to be able to, once you get acquainted with your gear inside and off the ground a little bit, you can graduate out to the real trees here. And these will also, we're going to be adding an enhancement to this grove, what's known as a canopy walk. It's an elevated sidewalk that is going to originate over here on the other side of this woods in that open space, and then find its way across this row of trees, and a suspension bridge across the road out into this center of this magnificent grove of trees, then a 50-foot tower up with some spokes that you could walk out on into the canopies of the trees.
When is this all going to be done?
Well, we have a countdown going in the maintenance building. There's 209 days and 3 hours left until our annual shareholders meeting, which is scheduled for May 20th, and our goal is to hold that in the barn in 2025. Now we're entering into what we refer to as East Research Area. So the large area out in front of us will all be dedicated to turf research. And we'll be getting some fencing up around this to keep the wildlife out of our research projects that are going on inside there. And then up here on the left, we've got greenhouses being constructed. There's a center head house, which is where all the work and potting takes place. And then there are 4 individual greenhouses, 2 on each side, coming out from the center building. And each one of those is individually climate controlled so that we can have 4 different environments going on at any given time for the researchers. So they're starting to frame in the greenhouses now as we drive by here.
Tell me the excitement you're hearing from your researchers.
Oh, Mr. Herms, who I know you spoke with quite frequently, is just over the top about this. I mean, there's nothing like this, according to Dan, in the research world, in our industry, not in the private sector or in academia either. So
I'm seeing what looks like what was left of Oak Knoll's
Well, not left at all. This
No.
is all totally redesigned. We did dedicate this space right here to golf. Our commercial division does have a golf course maintenance division. We maintain approximately 25 courses across the United States. And so the golf course, we brought in a professional golf course designer, a professional shaping company that did the grading. We did all the seeding, and we're doing all the growing ourselves. But it'll be utilized for turf research, best practice training on golf course maintenance, and of course employee fun. We do want it to get played because that puts it in the most real life situation of what we have to deal with out in the real world.
Well, isn't it cool that Oak Knolls Golf Course was here, but there's still a little bit of golf course left, even though it wasn't part of the original course, but still to have it here is pretty cool.
It's very cool, and in fact there was a monument up near the clubhouse that it depicted the whole 18 holes of Oak Knolls Golf Course, and we did save that, and then we've had a new plaque put for it, and we're naming it the Oak Knolls Davey Tree Executive Course. But it has the whole 18 holes from the original course on it, and we're going to bring it back here to memorialize what the site once was.
That's awesome.
The next feature of the campus is what we refer to as our non-energized right-of-way, or basically will be power lines without any energy running to them. We've got 3 basic training areas designed in here. The area to the right with the single poles running down this existing tree line will be set up with wires that look just like a typical distribution line running through any neighborhood across the United States. And then the space to the left is a course that's designed for some specialized training we do called lines under tension, primarily for storm response. When you get into storms where the storm brings down trees laying on top of the lines, we can recreate that scenario over here, and then teach our people how to properly and safely get those trees off of the power lines. And then the last section of the course down here is for our DRG Asset Management Group. And they do a lot of work for the power companies, basically doing inventory of things on the poles and who's all hanging on their poles. And so these will just get loaded up with just anything that could possibly be attached to a utility pole and be utilized for training of identifying those objects and doing inventories of them.
Well, Dan, from doing the podcast, I know how important safety is. And we've talked about researchers and their enjoyment of what's going to be here, but how about the people that are doing the training to have this, where you can actually duplicate real world experiences?
Yeah, it's just a tremendous resource to have. I mean, historically, this type of training just takes place on the job site. So, we haven't had this resource available to us to be able to bring people in here and get them trained up prior to them getting out, to the work area. So we think it will have a huge impact on, our safety and quality of our work, the efficiency of our work. There's just so many things that are going to be beneficial from the campus. Another really nice feature to the property is our own Davey Bog. We just, in the last couple of weeks, did some pruning and thinning along the front of it here to try to open up the vista to it. A couple of fun things we're getting ready to do. We'll be doing a controlled burn here in December to take out the invasive species that are starting to penetrate the bog. In addition to this off-season, during the dormant season, we're going to be constructing a boardwalk out over the top of the bog with an observation deck out towards the center. That can be utilized by our Davey Resource Group, Natural Resources Group, for education, training purposes for the work that they perform across the country.
In the planning of a project this big, are there evolutions and changes as it gets built, or does it stay exactly as the plan was?
Well, there's always changes. There's always last-minute things that come up or needs that you forgot about, but we really did a pretty thorough job of vetting that out when we went through our master plan process in 2018. There was probably a group of a dozen executives, along with reaching out to all potential end users and really vetting out what do you want, what do you need, what would you like to see, and got all of that into the master plan. And for the most part, we're executing the master plan to the T. I mean, at some points there were considerations of staging it out for 5 or 6 years and taking a little bit longer time to construct it and implement it. But at the end of the day, it was more economical to do it all at one time, and it obviously fit in better with my retirement plans to do it in 2 years rather than 5. So.
What is that to the left?
Off to the left is a tree research plantation. We've got 550 plus or minus trees out there. It's all irrigated, very sophisticated irrigation. So they're all undergoing, various types of research. Could be drought stress, it could be fertilization studies, it could be insect disease control methods or products. And we kind of planted it over a 3-year period, kind of 3 different blocks, so down the road when we have to replace it, it won't be all at one time. And typically, according to Mr. Herms, these trees will have a 10 to 15 year life cycle of research, and then we'll basically just tear them all out and start over again. I love this little alley we've got coming down through the center of the research area. It was an old cart path from the golf course that we basically just re-graveled and saved it and put the research area around it. These are the plants waiting to go in to the what we call phase 2 of the Arboretum. We're out there by Route 43. We've been getting deliveries on a regular basis here over the last couple of weeks. There's probably about 13,000 containerized plants sitting on the ground here, but that is our second batch of 13,000. We had a group come in the spring that we planted all summer, and now we've got these to get in the ground. I need about another 6 weeks of good weather to try to wrap up this planting. Yeah, so one of our goals when we started off with the planting process was for the building to get LEED certification credits, and we started off with targeting the lowest tier, which was silver. We're going to end up getting to gold certification, and a big component of getting to that level is the fact that we are doing solar. So we have about a 2-acre solar field here that will provide us with a net zero site. So basically we will generate as much electricity out of the solar panels as the entire site uses on an annual basis.
Why were you the man for this job?
It's a great question. Probably better answered by Pat. But I was in charge of our commercial division, and always in my whole career was kind of that big job guy for Davey Tree. So my career just took me into places where I was engaged with construction sites and large projects and managing large projects. So it just kind of it just lent itself to being prepared to take on something like this.
And once your swan song is complete here, will you come back and play golf?
Absolutely. I'm actually applying for the starter's position.
Is it bittersweet in any way to see it kind of get to the end?
No, it's just very gratifying is what it is. To see areas getting their final seeding and actually getting the grass coming up and being able to, this research area has been my favorite spot of the campus for the last 2 years because it's the only place it's done and it looks good. And, at this point now we're starting to button up some corners and getting other areas complete, and it's not bittersweet, it's just very gratifying.
And let's talk about how proud you are.
I'm super proud. Yeah, super proud. I mean, I couldn't have scripted a better way to end my career than to have the opportunity to come over here and do this. I mean, I couldn't have dreamt for anything better.
There's one important thing you missed.
What's that?
The pond. I heard you're going to let people fish in there.
Yeah, we did stock the pond about 3 weeks ago. Probably several thousand fish got put in there.
You know, I know a certain podcast host that loves the fish.
Well, when we let them mature a little bit, we'll have to get you out here. Just, throw a line in.